Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me today, and thanks especially to the Nordic Data Science and Machine Learning Conference for allowing me to speak. Today I'll be talking to you about advanced customer development frameworks for financial services, but it can be used in other services and areas too. So I hope there's something in it for all of you. A little bit about myself. So a very brief background. I'm currently the head of analytics at Storebrand. That means that I'm responsible for all analytics projects within the Storebrand group. I have experience at working from different consulting firms such as Capgemini and various startups. I've worked around the world in Vancouver, London, Amsterdam, and Oslo, and as such, I've seen different ways that companies solve similar problems and different ways that they solve different problems. So this gives me a broad background. But we're here today to talk about what we've done at Storebrand. And for that, we need to understand a little bit what Storebrand is and how it operates. So Storebrand is a financial services group, and that means that we are both an insurance company, a retail bank, a savings company, and an asset manager. In fact, we're Norway's largest private asset manager with over 900 billion in assets under management. We've generated this setup because it allows us to get cost synergies and data synergies, and we have been in business for over 250 years, so we're hoping to be around for a little bit longer. Today, I'm talking about customer development, and to place that in its proper context, we have to look back a little bit at where we started to understand where we are today. So back in 2015, we deployed our first model. This was the generation of what we call the next best action or next best activity. So what do we give our customer as a message, as a marketing campaign next? And from that, over the last couple of years, we've grown out to serve models for over 30 products, and they've all been separate models. And with this, we got an increased complexity and an increased number of stakeholders. So that has led us ultimately to the introduction of a new framework. And that's what I'm sharing with you today. This journey from where we started, what happened, and what we've done to mitigate the problems that we see. And hopefully there's something in this for you that you don't have to make the same mistakes. What was the MBA? It has nothing to do with basketball. The next best activity was meant to be personalized, relevant, consistent, and automated customer development, meaning that customers get personalized messages that are relevant for their specific context and consistent across different channels. So if we look at this a little bit more technically, then you see that we have all these channels: advisors, outbound calls, web personalization, email personalization, and we have all these sources, information about our customers, what they do in insurance, what they do in the bank, which products they've bought previously, their age, etc. And all of this data resides in our sources. And it's up to the analytics department to make sense of this, to create models that take information from the sources and make a model that consistently feeds that out over to those channels. And there's a couple of elements to this. First is, of course, the analytics, and the second part is also the distribution of those messages across all those channels. This has been tremendously successful for us. We've gotten a 5 to 8% increase in sales in various channels where we could actually measure this. And this is not to be underestimated. But this is not the end of the story, because as you can see from this picture, it's quite an intricate web of sources on the one hand and channels on the other hand. So what happens is that analytics is a sort of middleman. On the one hand side, we have sources that generate new products, that implement legal changes that are being used for operational use. And on the other hand, we have the business development, which changes strategy, which is line of business organized and might have competing objectives. Even though that's not explicit, the bank and the insurance, to some extent, are competing services that we offer. And in the middle is analytics that tries to make models that are specialized and optimized for a specific target. But they also have to operate as a middleman, as I said before, as a person that can help figure out what's happening in the sources on the one hand, figure out what's happening on the business side on the other hand, and collect that information and try to weigh off the pros and cons of each of those changes. So analytics is in a bit of a squeeze here, and that puts us in a difficult position. Again, as you can see, because there's so many sources on the one hand side and so many channels on the other side, this becomes really a squeeze over time, especially when there's multiple stakeholders involved. And to see a little bit what the effects are of those stakeholders, let's take a look at the traditional next best activity modeling. So when we started, what we said was, well, first of all, we started with a single model, but what we said was we rank our customers from least likely to most likely. And this means that customers that end up at the bottom are not likely to buy this product at all, and customers that are at the top are very likely to buy this product. But we're not interested in selling this to everyone, because for a lot of the people at the bottom, this would just be noise. It wouldn't be relevant. So we said, let's make the top group, the top tier, the top percentile, if you want, let's call that a 10. Like, these are the best customers. And then the second group, we call that an 8, the third group a 5, and the rest, the large majority of our customer base, we don't want to target them with this message because it's not relevant to them. And so far, so good, because if you have a single model, this is an excellent way of doing this. However, there's a complexity introduced when you add new models to this. So now we transform from not having a single model, but having a model for car insurance, for house insurance, for savings, for credit card, for health insurance. And in this setup, what can happen is that a customer is the most likely for all of these products. So there can be a customer that is both most likely to buy house insurance, as well as credit card, as well as health insurance. And this is because many of the traits that tell something about the goodness of the customer are similar across products. People with many cars, with lots of real estate, have need for multiple products, and therefore might end up in multiple products. And so the same group of customers tends to end up at the top of the similar kind of products. And this is a problem because now we're not being that relevant anymore. The customer gets multiple messages that are all relevant, but at the same time also overwhelming the customer with what we offer. And all of this is complicated by the fact that we actually have strategies. We want to sell certain products at certain moments in time. So what happens when, for instance, there is a campaign where we say we really want to push house content insurance? Well, that doesn't really fit in this framework. And so when the business comes to us and asks, like, well, can you tweak this model a little bit so that this model that you gave a 10, can we make that go a little bit higher? Can we maybe give that a 10.5 or maybe even 11?
This is a top to what we use on stage, but it's very, very special because if you can see, the numbers all go to 11. Look, right across the board. 11, 11,
and most of
11,
the amps go up to 10.
Exactly.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it? It's not 10. You see, most blokes, be playing at 10. You're on 10 here, all the way up, all the way up, all the way up. You're on 10 on your guitar. Where can you go from there? Where?
I don't know.
Nowhere, exactly. What we do is if we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly. One louder.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
And that is then exactly what we did. We make this one model go a little bit louder, make it go to 11, so that it ends up for a lot of customers as their first recommendation. And so far, so good. Like, you are able to play around a little bit with what is intended and what is possible within these frameworks. But over time, again, because we had so many models, so many competing needs, it was unclear which models were turned to 11 and which ones were still actually giving a score for 10. So at that point, we made a change in methodology. We said from this ranking within a specific product, we rank across all products. And we look at the customer's probability of purchase. And of course, this isn't perfect either, because there might be products that sell less by the very nature of the product. Think, for instance, of disability pension. And car insurance is sold a lot because it's actually a mandatory product. So the probability for car insurance might automatically be higher than that for disability pension. However, this is the specificity that you have to deal with within analytics. We need to find a specific target that we can optimize for. And in this case, we chose probability of purchase. As you can see, this changes the recommendations a lot. Some products are more probable to being sold, others are less probable to being sold. And if you're in the top categories within those products, there's still a difference between the products. And this gives us a new way of ranking our customers. Here you can see that the travel insurance customer is maybe as likely to buy as a top-tier health insurance customer. And this is important because now we can give the customers a rank between the products and between the customers. It also allows us to play with seasonality effects and other things and scale those probabilities by actual effects that we're seeing in the world. Unfortunately, we're still not there. We went from product-centric, where we ranked within the products, to customer-centric, where we ranked among the products and therefore to the customers. But we are still dealing with large changes in the landscape and requirements. So as I said, the use cases, where they use our models changes, how they use our model changes. And these give different conversations, right? We have different strategies over time, and so we have to make changes to our models as well. And we found that this single model, this one sort of model methodology, performs rather poorly when you have to take into account all these different needs. But at the same time, we see that they're all very legitimate uses of our models. So what can we do? Where can we go from here? Well, we went back to sort of the roots of what we're trying to do. And we know that we have competing needs, but we also know that we have a couple of different types of customers. We have prospects, people that we don't know yet. We have customers that we can upsell and cross-sell to. And we have people actively calling us up or going to our website trying to get hold of a product, right? So they are very much inbound. And with that in mind, we came up with a new way of structuring our models. We said that we actually not have a single model, but we have 3 model types. Reach models, which allows product departments to reach a larger audience based on their strategy or whatever. We have a relevant model, which gives suggestions for people that we know, that we have observables of, and we have a React model. And the React model reacts and responds to customers' behavior and expressed interest. And this sums up our journey from NBA with the complexities to where we are today. So let's go into a little bit more depth on these separate models. The reach model is meant for new products, for marketing campaigns, where we have a hunch of prospects that we want to go after, but we don't have enough information to actually make personalized models on them. This gives the business a lot of freedom and space to play around with business rules, for instance, to come up with new campaigns and new audiences that they want to target without needing all of that data to support their decision. This is also a rather slow process, right? So this happens at the weekly or the monthly time interval, and it's very much product-centric. Then on top of that, we offer a relevance model with customers that are like you. So this is about upselling and cross-selling customers. These are customers, not prospects. These are customers that we have some information about, and we know that others like them have done certain things in the past, and therefore they might be more likely to do that in the future. This is more relevant, more personalized, and this is very closely related to our traditional approach that I showed earlier. And the timing here is daily, because these observables, where you live, how old you are, how many kids you have, what products you buy, doesn't change that rapidly. And so there's also no need to really box that in or make it real time. And this is much more customer centric. And then finally, we have the React model, where we are personalized and customer driven. So when a customer expresses a need to us, we make sure that we follow up. We make sure that we pick up the signals and act on them accordingly. So this is very much customer driven, and this has to be real time, because if a customer is looking for a product but cannot find it, we need to respond immediately. The benefits of this are hard to overstate, because it allows us to have different conversations for all three of these model types. But it also allows us to prioritize more generically. So we can say where we have the information, we use it, and where we don't, we don't. So we don't try to mix all of that in the same framework. So if we have a campaign for car insurance, but we know that customers like you buy house insurance, we should trump car insurance with house insurance. But if you end up coming to our website and saying, I would like to buy a child insurance, then it doesn't matter that we're campaigning car insurance or that others like you are buying house insurance. What matters is that you want to buy child insurance. We should act on that. It also helps us to kind of split up these models and find the specific tools for the specific need. So Reach can include simple classification models and can include additional information, such as how much product value this has. So how much money would Storebrand be making with this specific product? And that we can link into this Reach model. For relevant, it's slightly more advanced. It's clustering, like collaborative filtering. And here we can include things like customer lifetime value. What is this product going to be worth to the customer, or what is this customer therefore going to be worth to Storebrand in the future? And finally, the React model, which is a markup decision process, and it is likely it extracts the next action. And if the customer fails to do that action, we can trigger that action. And so with these models, we see that they have a distinct benefit over each other. Reach, as I said earlier, gives a 5 to 8% lower conversion rate than Relevance, and Relevance gives a lower conversion rate than React. So we have these challenges on the one hand side. We have the changing requirements, and we have created a framework that allows us to do sort of mental counting. Where do we solve this problem? We have difficulty to engage with the business because of all the various complexities, and this framework allows us to do proper conversations. It allows us to talk about business needs in context of the Reach. It allows us to think about customer centricity in the context of React, and it allows us to have sort of a middle ground, a traditional way of working in the relevance models. We have specialized models instead of one general model, which also allows us to perform better in each of these categories, making them all a little bit better by splitting them up. And we see the need to satisfy these legitimate use cases. And I think that by splitting our modeling up in this way, we actually give legitimacy to these questions and give a way to answer them and have discussions around them. So the key takeaways are: don't stop starting. If you are just getting started, don't make this your primal focal point. It is more important to get started with any type of machine learning model and figure things out for yourself than to think that you have to start with this complexity in mind. But if you have started and you find yourself in a similar position where you're not getting the exact benefits that you want, then perhaps it's a good idea to take this into account. Customer objectives, personalization needs need to be met and weighed against business needs, because data, machine learning is all rather passive. We're not yet coming up with new products, And therefore, we need to give space to the business to explore new products and to explore new avenues of revenue. And that we can all fit in this reach model, where we can fit the customer objectives and the personalization needs in the React and relevance models. A one-size-fits-all approach fits no one. These generalized models sound very good on paper, but are really hard to maintain and actually end up costing a lot more in the long term than having specialized models. Again, it's hard to overstate this, but if you try to make a generalized model, you have too many stakeholders on both the channel side and on the source side to create a model that actually satisfies everybody. Therefore, splitting it up gives you the possibility to be much more specific on your sources, much more specific on where you use that model, and you can still have some sort of prioritization over the models. So breaking up the problem into smaller models or smaller problems might seem like overhead initially, because now there's multiple models, but it makes it much easier to do quick development within these models. It makes it much easier to have conversations. It makes it easier to optimize models. But I think from a business perspective, it also makes it much more easy to shut down a specific part. If the business is not interested in doing reach anymore, or relevance, or React, we can terminate those models while still keeping the ones that are actually bringing value. So with that, I hope you all got a little bit of insight into our journey, where we started and where we are today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them to me in the chat window here on the side. And if you want to look me up, you can either go to my website or look me up on Medium. At any rate, I'll be happy to answer any and all questions that you have, and feel free to reach out to continue our conversation offline. Thank you very much.